Hey, thank you for coming by my YouTube site, Tori Magoo 44. I greatly appreciate you coming by. I really do. You guys mean a lot to me. And today is the 25th of August. This is a bit of a heavy subject, but I think it's very important. The reason why I'm making it today is my friend in London, Sam Freeman, did a show on television about Scientology and their enforced abortions. And I went to look on it and it says private only. And I thought, I tried a few different links and they all said private only. And I thought, all right, that's it. I'm going to make my own video about my personal experiences with the Church of Scientology and say what I know about this area. I was in the Sea Org. They made me leave because I have epilepsy and they said, oh, you can't be on medication and yada, yada. I've made many videos about that story. If you haven't heard it, you can watch earlier videos about it. Anyway, roll forward. It's in the late 80s, early 90s. I'm pretty sure it was the late 80s, but they call me and they say, Tori, this is an emergency. Get over here right now. And so I go over and I'm like, okay, what now? Because it was sort of like all the time. There was some emergency. This is an emergency. That's an emergency. If it wasn't one thing, it was the next, right? So I'm like, all right, what? And they said, okay, sit down. And I sit down. I'm thinking, oh, God, what is this now? And they said, the kids of the Sea Organization have joined gangs. And I'm like, real gangs? And they're like, yes, real gangs. Now, a little bit of backstory on that. I, for years, had watched these children of the Sea Org. I got in '69. In the '70s, and anybody who was in then knows the kids were sitting around their parents. If they were selling books, the kids were on the floor, goofing around. If they were regs, they were there. Everybody was smoking, self included. I quit in 1974. But at the time, we were all smoking like mad. It was like a casino, right? And here are these kids. And we started talking to the executives, a few of us, saying, these children need more than just sitting around these orgs with all this smoke and everything else. So they get this little parking lot, kind of kitty corner from the advanced organization. And if anybody was there, they know it. It's cement bottom with green tarps all around it. And here's all the Sea Organization mobbed into that little courtyard thing. Parking lot, really. It was awful. And so a few of us kept saying, you've got to do something for these children. They need to be educated. They need to be in a safe space. This isn't it, right? Okay, so now roll forward. It's the late 80s or early 90s. Anybody who knows the exact date, chime in. But it was right around that time. And they call me, bring me over. They say the kids have joined gangs. And I've often been in touch with kids on the street. So I'm saying, this will be cinch. Yeah, let's go over and talk to them. I can talk to them, sure. So we drive over, and the kids come out, and I say, what's going on? And they say, these guys never supported us. They didn't, Tori. And they knew I knew because I'd been talking to them. I'd been talking to the parents. It was a situation that I felt needed to be handled for years. And they said, so these guys are a new family. And they point to the gangs. And I said, really? And I said, what about Scientology? And they go like this. They didn't hold up this book, but I'm going to show you it in writing. Here's the book, L. Ron Hubbard, '08, which is their book of basics. This is, of course, a reprint, which is totally out tech per L. Ron Hubbard, keeping Scientology working because you can never change anything. And dear old David Miscavige did. So all of you that are supporting him right there, what the fuck are you doing? But here's their code of honor. And if you see number 1, it says never desert a comrade in need, in danger, or in trouble. Okay? And that's what they quote to me. Never desert a comrade in need, in danger, or in trouble. And these are our new comrades. And it's like, oh my God, we leave. And I'm like, this is a nightmare. Because now the Sea Org kids are trained in Scientology tech. And they're using it against the Church of Scientology, who has basically screwed them over for many, many years. Now, I'm not saying it's all the Sea Org kids, but some of them did. And that, shortly after that, was when I heard no one who was pregnant could stay in a Sea organization. They had to go to a lower org, which were just staff. They weren't Sea Org. And then shortly after that, they entered in these enforced abortions. Now, we who were in didn't, the public, which is most of, if you think of a triangle, the Sea Org are up here, the top part, and most of us, the big majority of the people, are public auditors, people training. They're not necessarily Sea organizations, so it wouldn't apply to any of them. And most of us didn't really know about it. If I did know about it, it was sort of like I kind of heard it in the wind, and as soon as you'd hear it, somebody'd say, "Oh, that's just a rumor. That's not true." That kind of thing. When I got out, I found out it's absolutely true. And even before I got out, I was talking to Andreas Heldelin online in June of 2000, and I made 4,000 posts in 4 weeks. And with him, I asked him, "Why do you have up this stuff about my religion?" And he said, "I believe in truth. I believe in looking at both sides, and I have the courage to say what I think. I don't think Scientologists are bad. I just think they're misinformed. I suggest you start reading the internet." Now, I'd never read the internet before that, not at all, not anything, as far as actually reading an article. So I look and I see Mary Tabayoyan, who I'll always thank for writing this and sharing her story. And it says, "Ladies, if you're thinking of joining the Sea Org, read this." And I was in the Sea Org in 72 and routed out because I have epilepsy and medicine and blah, blah, blah. I've made a ton of videos about that. But I always had in my mind I was going to go back into the Sea organization. And I know for people that are watching this who have full access to the internet, you're like, how could anybody ever, buy into that? But you have to remember, we didn't have access to the internet. This was my very first, on the internet talking to Andreas. I was like a little kid, oh my God, I can talk to an SP, right? And I'm talking to him and he's like, "Read the internet." And I read this thing by Mary Tabayoyan. And this is my first reading anything, right? I know nothing. All the stuff that you guys know, I know nothing of it, right? So I read this, "Ladies, if you're thinking of joining the Sea Org, read this." And I read it, and it's Mary talking about she got pregnant. She was ordered to get an abortion by David Miscavige. She was sent to an abortion clinic. And the next day, she was ordered to be on post. And she describes the whole thing. I mean, if I can find the article, I will, and I'll put it in the comments. But it was awful. I sat in my dining room where my computer was, and I cried for 4 straight hours. I couldn't stop crying. I mean, it was like, this was my church, right? And now I'm realizing it isn't a church. It's a mafia-like organization, which is really what it is. It's a business. It's not a religion. And Jerry, it isn't. It is not a religion, and I'm not supporting OSA by saying that. And that's a whole different video. But the point is, in my view, it is certainly not a church as the average person thinks of a church. It is not a religion as the average person thinks of a religion. I get for the people that say, "Oh, a lot of other religions have creepy things." I get it. But the abusive things that the Church of Scientology does, I don't know of any other church. Some other cults do, but not churches. They may do their own weird stuff, but they don't harm people to the point where they have to disconnect and kids can't talk to their parents ever, ever. You know what I mean? Or fair game to the extent that the Church of Scientology does. They're not a church. They're a mafia-like organization. And if you think they are, type in Scientology + judges and read what judges who've been in the courtrooms with the Church of Scientology, read what they have to say about it. So there you go. If you're in the Church of Scientology and supporting them, please start learning what they really do. I'm not alone on here. You don't have to believe me, but do start looking and listening and learning, and don't waste your life. And for everyone that is helping support and expose the phony Church of Scientology / mafia-like organization / business, I thank you from the top and the bottom of my heart. And I wish you a wonderful week. There you go. Bye-bye.